We just got our first trailer for Space Force, but will it scratch the Office itch? Like so many offices across the country, Netflix is about to close a major one, specifically The Office.
No, God!
The hit comedy is leaving the streaming giant at the end of this year, and that's left many fans of the workplace comedy at a total loss as to what they should watch next. Do they sign up for yet another streaming service, or purchase physical media?
No, come on!
Well, pshaw, I say, pshaw to all of that, because Netflix had a backup plan. They enlisted producer Greg Daniels and star Steve Carell, two of the driving forces behind the American version of The Office, to make a brand new sitcom called Space Force. Considering just how successful The Office was for Netflix, it's obvious they're banking on Space Force to fill that void that's going to be left behind when The Office finally leaves. You know, void because anyway, you guys are smart. If you're as out of the loop as Michael Scott is all the time always, Space Force is a workplace comedy starring Steve Carell as Air Force General Mark Naird. He's been tapped to lead the newly formed 6th branch of the US military, the Space Force, and they have been tasked in turn by the White House to get Americans back on the moon ASAP in order to achieve total space dominance. Now, far and away, the biggest question that fans have thus far is how will Space Force compare to The Office? Because for some people, and certain former co-workers of mine who are perpetually stuck in an Ouroboros-like loop of nostalgic rewatching, looking at you Shiraz and Aaron, The Office is a modern classic. Well, on Tuesday, Netflix dropped the first trailer for Space Force and gave fans the first clues as to what to expect from Carell and company. So, does it scratch The Office itch? Let's break it down. So obviously, Netflix is banking on luring in fans of The Office, but Space Force also notably tries to differentiate itself despite some overt similarities to NBC comedies of yesteryear. First and foremost, Space Force doesn't adhere to the mockumentary style of talking head interviews that The Office helped popularize. But even if Space Force isn't mirroring reality by pretending to be a documentary, it is mirroring reality by fictionalizing the weirdly all-too-real announcement of the Space Force as the actual 6th branch of the real-life US military.
What?
Anyway, Steve Carell explained how the show came to be in a Netflix Q&A. Space Force came around in a rather atypical way. There was no show, there was no idea, aside from the title. Netflix asked, "Do you want to do a show called Space Force?" And I pretty much immediately said, "Well, yeah, sure, that sounds great." And then I called Greg and I said, "Hey, do you want to do a show called Space Force?" And he said, "Yeah, that sounds good, let's do it." And it was really based on nothing except this name that made everybody laugh, so we were off and running. So a show about nothing. Doesn't sound like any NBC comedy I've ever heard of.
Well, what's the show about? It's about nothing.
Anyway, another major comparison audiences are discussing is the parallel between Michael Scott and Space Force's General Mark Naird. Judging by the trailer, Naird seems to be the polar opposite of Michael Scott. Whereas Scott was oblivious, Naird is fully aware of the craziness that surrounds him and with what he's being asked to do. The real difference here is that while Scott was a good salesman, he often failed to be a good manager. Meanwhile, Naird looks too competent to let Space Force fail in spite of its eyebrow-raising mission. However, both characters clearly love to stare longingly out of windows.
The city.
Another major departure is the use of profanity in Space Force, because it's clear they're no longer shackled by the constraints of network television.
Stay calm!
Oh! The Office started off with a relatively unknown cast who grew into superstars over time, but Space Force is coming hot out the gates with a variety of recognizable faces, like John Malkovich, Jane Lynch, and of course, Ben Schwartz.
Technically, I'm homeless!
And look, Space Force is not a show about the inner workings of middle management in the bureaucracy of corporate America. It's about the inner workings of government bureaucracy, two completely different reasons to make you want to bang your head against the nearest hard surface. But most of all, fans are delighted to see Carell return to television in a comedic role. Space Force might not exactly be The Office 2.0, but hey, that's okay.
That is a good point.
Because people don't just need rehashes of things they already love, they want something new to love. Ultimately, we'll see for ourselves how these two stack up when Space Force drops on Netflix on May 29th. But what do you folks think? Are you excited for Space Force? Do you want it to be more like The Office or less like it? And are you just grateful to have something new to watch during quarantine? Be honest. Oh! Let's discuss. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. And if you want to get notified every time we go live or drop a new video, hit that little bell down below. That way you're going to be up to date on all the latest news, theories, and rumors in the pop culture world. In the meantime, stay safe, be healthy, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!